Tonight on Let It Rip.
It's been one witch hunt and phony investigation after another.
With someone like Trump, who has been able to avoid consequences for misdeeds for his entire life, may actually find out at long last that there is an end of the road.
An historic moment and a dark one for former President Donald Trump, indicted by a Manhattan grand jury over payments made during his 2016 campaign, hush money to a porn star to try and silence claims of an affair, the first criminal case against a former president. So are those charges the Trump card that'll bring him down, or just trumped up? And will it hurt his chances of reclaiming the White House in 2024? We're debating this historic story right now. We have both sides of the coin here tonight on Let It Rip. We have Congresswoman Debbie Dingell and conservative attorney Terry Johnson. They're ready to let it rip, as is Fox 2 anchor and attorney Charlie Langton. Congresswoman, we thank you for joining us from Washington. I got to ask you, first off, looking at this case, as you've heard the details come out here, the one thing you're hearing from conservative voices is, wait a minute here, this district attorney is weaponizing the justice system for political reasons. What do you say?
So first of all, I don't have the details, nor does anybody else as far as I know. This indictment has not been unsealed. We don't know what the charges are. What I want to say is that we are a nation of laws, and everyone should be treated equally, and no one should be above the law. But I don't know the details. Everybody is allowed due process. We're three branches of government. The judicial branch is working, and we need to let them do their work. And I want to say this. I want to pray that all of us will be calm and peaceful and let the process play out. Let's get the facts.
Terry Johnson, you heard former President Trump say that when I'm indicted, it'll be time to protest and take our country back. So many people on both ends of the political spectrum are saying, has this former president not learned anything from the insurrection to call for taking the country back and for, protesting? Should he be more careful about the words that he chooses?
Well, again, taking our country back, I mean, how many times have we heard people say, I'm going to go back to the old days, or make America great again? Taking the country back does not mean go out and fight and spill blood in the streets. There's a way to do it, and the way to do that is at the ballot box. So,
do you think that what's happening right now with the former president is going to help him at the ballot box come 2024?
Well, I told Charlie something years ago on Let It Rip. I said, you know what, Charlie? You're never going to get rid of Trump, because the media wants it to go and go and go. And here we are again, and we're talking about Donald Trump front and center. And this is going to help him, because most people believe he's being done wrongly. And because of that, I think it's really going to have an impact on the election.
I want to get to the Congressman real quickly here. We have 4 cases against the former president. Isn't this the least strong and the least important to the American people?
You know what I want to say to you? I'm not in the courtroom. I don't know what's happening in any of these investigations, so I'm not going to make statements that I don't have the facts about. I'm going to tell you that you have a Republican and Democrat who agree here on 2 things. One, the best way to make how you feel known is at the ballot box in a peaceful way. And 2, I never underestimate Donald Trump. I said he would win Michigan in 2016 when I thought everybody thought I was crazy. And there's still a very significant number of people in Michigan that support him. So these next few weeks, months, year and a half until, or what's longer than that, to November 24, it's going to be interesting. And I never count Donald Trump out for anything.
Charlie, you had Mr. DeSantis himself, who has not put his name in formally, but seems like he's kind of campaigning for the job. He himself came out in defense of former President Trump, saying that this is a witch hunt. That's helping former President Trump, isn't it?
This is going to help President Trump, keeping him in the spotlight. Oh my gosh! And when you take a look at this, remember this is a trial now. So the star witnesses here for the prosecution of the DA, we have a porn star and a disbarred attorney. And who's Trump's star witness? Some guy named Mr. Pecker. Who can take this stuff seriously? This is going to be front page on every news station forever. The only winners here are going to be us, the media.
Trump claims that he didn't even have an affair. Why are we talking about this? Yet you have his former attorney who actually did some time for this and paid $130,000 admittingly to this porn star.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, Terry, where there's smoke, there's fire. That's not enough for an indictment, but don't you see why people are concerned about this case and where this money went?
Well, you know, here's the thing. My understanding is this happened, two things, well before the campaign started. So it's not campaign funds. Secondly, Michael Cohen, the disbarred attorney, if you look at what he did, he said in a federal claim back in 2018, he said, I gave the money to Stormy Daniels and Donald Trump didn't know. He made that statement to a federal agent. Now, he's either lying then or he's lying now. So which one is it?
But isn't it the case that if it's hush money, you're not supposed to disclose it, period? So maybe he was being quiet for that reason. And
there was an NDA, which we all forget about, a non-disclosure agreement, which she, the porn star, had to pay back Donald Trump money.
But the real, and we don't have the indictment in front of us, and our attorney sitting here, you're an attorney as well, but we understand the charges of falsifying business records in connection to the hush money is really what we're talking about here. If I did that, I'd be in trouble and no one would even question it. Why are we questioning it with former President Trump, Terry?
Well, first of all, we're talking about a state prosecutor trying to bring federal charges, which is a huge jurisdictional issue. Secondly, there's a statute of limitations on this thing. I believe it's 2 years, maybe 3. We're now talking about something that's, what, 7 years old?
Well, the grand jury would have known about that, though, and this is just grand jury has been impaneled for a long time. So statute of limitations is probably not going to work.
Well, that I don't know, because, again, do they have to bring the charges before the statute? Because, again, if you start that, I can start a case now and let it run for 7 or 8 years.
Well, there's a lot of hearsay because we don't have it in front of us. But what we do have in front of us is the facts. And the fact of the matter is you have a district attorney who you're hearing Terry talk about, Congresswoman Dingell, who a lot of people are saying is kind of playing out of his field. He's actually coming out and saying, hey, I know that the federal charges, that we're assuming that's what these are, have been looked at and shoved aside, but I'm going to go for this. Can you see how people think this is all political?
Look, I do think that there is that perception, but I am going to keep saying we need the facts. I am not going to speculate. I do not believe that anybody is above the law. I think we need to let the judicial process play out. There is there's been a grand jury that's been called. The indictment is still been sealed. We don't have the facts. And I'm just not going to speculate. But I do hope that we live in a country that we have to quit undermining people's confidence in the institutions. I believe in our democracy.
But
I'm an American. I want to see it play out.
The reason people feel as though there's a question on the whole system is because it feels so political. And let me ask you this. If this was former President Bill Clinton, who I know you're friends with and you know the family, but if this was him we were talking about in this situation, and you had a DA at a state level jumping out of his jurisdiction to try to make a charge right on the eve of an election.
Is he jumping out of his jurisdiction? We don't even have that fact. There's a lot of speculation here. And that's what I'm trying to say. Let's everybody's entitled to due process, including the former president of the United States. Let's give him the due process. But I also don't believe that anybody's above the law. We are a nation of laws.
Debbie, will the Democrats use this indictment to raise money? The threat of Donald Trump being in the news every single day, energizing his campaign. Will the Democrats use this to raise money?
I know the Republicans already are. Look, this whole thing made me sick today because we all know it's just going to be it's going to be more kerosene on the fire of division in this country. I don't have the facts. And I really do believe we've got to believe in our judicial system and let the facts play out.
Terry,
I don't believe anybody's above the law.
This president, we know one thing. He likes the cameras, whether he was doing The Apprentice or he was running for president. He even likes the cameras on a bad day. He enjoys the attention. We know that about this guy. And we also know that he will use it for political gain. Will he use, if there is a walk in which he's, turning himself in, if there are fingerprints, if there are mugshots, all of that, will he use that on his Truth Social to invigorate his base?
Absolutely.
Is that okay?
Wouldn't you?
But is that okay?
Well, why wouldn't it be? The system, he's almost being treated like a black man, right? He's almost being treated. Oh, here's Debbie. He's being falsely accused, right? He's got to go through all of this. His fingerprints are out there. You're going to see Donald Trump's face everywhere behind bars. and it's going to really make his campaign stronger. Let me say one thing.
Sure.
Debbie, I agree with a lot of things that Debbie is saying about throwing kerosene on the fire and let the process take its place. I agree with that, but the problem that I see right now is the process is starting off bad. And if it starts off bad with the questions that we have, how do you expect to get a good result in the end?
But to Congresswoman's point, if you don't have the information in front of you, you're an attorney, you're telling me that the information or the way it's starting is bad when we don't know that it was bad. We don't know if there was a jurisdictional violation, do we? We don't have that information.
She is correct and you are correct. We don't know. However, you folks here in the media have your sources and you hear certain things, and based upon what I'm hearing in the media, it doesn't add up.
Congresswoman Dingell, you...
Hey, I have to say this to you. I've known the media to be wrong many a time. So just because the media is reporting it doesn't make it right.
I want to ask...
One other thing is that people call last week, it wasn't just, make America great again. It was, there's going to be death and violence. I don't want to see any death or violence. I love this country. I love everybody. And I don't ever want to see another January 6th in the history of this country.
And I agree with you, Congresswoman. That's what makes you good at your position. Statements like that, and we need more people who come out and say the exact same things that you've said. I mean, that's what makes this country great.
Thank you. And I don't care about media, television, or ratings or anything in between. Nobody wants to see that happen again. Everybody knows that was wrong.
Though, when he gets indicted. Though,
well, but I want to ask you this, Congresswoman. You know this president. You are a congresswoman right now. You've met with him several times. You know people who know him very well. Is he going to be able to handle the fact that there's going to be a judge sitting in front of him setting forth pretrial rules and conditions that in his whole life he has not had to do? I mean, do you think he's going to be able to do that? Follow all the rules?
This is Donald Trump we're talking about. I'm going to let the judicial process play out, but Donald Trump does not play by the rules. And by the way, that's how he became president. Everybody said he could never become president. He's it's going to be very interesting to watch it all.
His own niece, Mary Trump, who of course is an adversary of Donald Trump, who's also a psychologist, said that everyone thinks that he's going to enjoy this perp walk and use it on his Truth Social. But Terry, one of his greatest fears also is humiliation. Is this going to be a place where he's going to finally look at himself in the mirror and say, maybe, just maybe, I shouldn't be putting all this stuff out there? Well, this is serious.
You're talking about a man that's been impeached not once, not twice, but 3 times. He's used it to his advantage. This is a man that wants to be in the media. There's no such thing as bad media coverage for him. So I firmly believe that he is going to use this to his advantage.
And he was impeached twice, but we should also mention that he's legally able to run for president, Charlie, if even he's convicted.
Correct.
And so this is a guy who, in the polls, is still up there, and now you have this, which could actually bolster his polls. You see his numbers going up.
Yeah, I think it will. And I think he's going to use it to raise money. I think he already has. When he announced the other day that he was going to be indicted, he raised more money that week than I think he ever did the whole year. Of course it is. Interesting, though, he's going to be a little bit careful. If this thing does go to trial, this is in New York City. Where they vote, how much Democrat, Republican in New York City? It's a very Democratic city. That's where the jury pool will be. It's a state case, so it's going to be New York City. So he's going to have a little bit of a problem, though, convincing a Democratic jury that he is innocent of whatever charge they bring.
Look for a change of venue.
Well, that's going to be some legal maneuvering, but isn't it interesting that it did happen in New York? I'm not taking one way. Listen, the guy broke the law, indict the guy and charge him and convict him if he broke the law. But I agree with what you said earlier. I think that out of a lot of these, this is a 2016 payment to a porn star. So I think there's going to be difficulty prosecuting this case. Yes?
Go ahead, Congresswoman. What were you saying?
No, quit insulting. You know, what somebody does for a living, you're attacking her on that too. Like,
you don't think that's going to be a credibility issue? That's going to be a credibility issue. She took $130,000 for what? For having an affair with the guy? That's your star witness? No credibility there.
And a disbarred attorney to add to it.
I'm just saying.
But we only have a few seconds left here, but what does this do for Rick DeSantis? Congresswoman? Ron DeSantis,
I think Rick DeSantis has to walk a tightrope, and I'm telling you, this could play out many different ways.
Well, Ron DeSantis will be watching this, so will the rest of the country. Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, thanks for joining us today. Terry Johnson, attorney, always good to see you. Thank you. Well, all of this happening as Trump makes another bid at the White House. So will this help or hurt his chances of getting back in the Oval Office? The debate rolls on next. Back now on Let It Rip, keeping the conversation going about the historic indictment against former President Trump. Michigan VA Director and former State Senator Adam Ollier joins us. Political and communications specialist Jason Cable-Rowe and Fox 2 anchor and attorney Charlie Langton are ready to fire up the debate. All right, I'm going to begin with a comment that we just got tonight from Tudor Dixon, who says this, and I wanted to address this with you, Adam, first off, to say that she says the indictment of President Trump is a legal disaster and a clear manipulation of our justice system by Democrats to attack a Republican political opponent. Democrats and far-left prosecutors should be focused on locking up violent criminals instead of pursuing political retribution against a former president. When you hear that, do any of those words, can you see how that could ring true for someone who's watching?
No.
Why?
I mean, when you look at this is a president who started his campaign by saying, lock her up, and I'm going to lock up all these people. He said he was a rule of law person. And from the moment he got elected to every moment since his presidency, he's talked about flouting the laws and incited people to violence and talking about all of these kind of things. The justice system is working, right? The prosecutor said when he first got elected that they probably were not going to pursue these things unless the facts indicated that it made sense. In the first set of trials, it came back that the Trump organization was not following financial rules and everything. And in that, they must have found something that led a grand jury to give reason and credence to indict. But we have a system of laws that's working through the process.
And we have also our legal attorney, Charlie Langton, who's going to chime in a second here, but I wanted to get Jason in the fold here. The charge really has to do with, and we don't know, we haven't seen this yet, the indictment, but so far we know that there are charges of falsifying business records in connection to the hush money. So whether or not you think it was okay to pay someone off is really immaterial. It's about this falsification of business records. If I did that, I'd be in trouble. Shouldn't the former president?
Well, I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with what Adam said. And obviously, we don't know what's in the indictment, so a lot of this is speculative. I would say this. This investigation has been going on for 5 years. We have the recipient of the hush money and the fixer that delivered the hush money that cooperated with the grand jury. Incidentally, we're talking about a porn star and an admitted felon that are who the Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg are resting this case on. 5 years this was going on, and when Alvin Bragg took over from Cyrus Vance, his predecessor as Manhattan District Attorney, he was actually criticized because he tried to get this off his desk. He didn't see that there was enough that warranted pursuing it and set it aside. In the interim, over the last 2 years, crime in Manhattan has gone through the roof. Republicans made significant gains in New York in the last election based largely on out-of-control crime in the city of New York that affected how people throughout the state were viewing New York and the crime situation politically. This, I think, more than anything else, some people are saying retribution and hatred towards Trump. I think it's Alvin Bragg trying to save himself politically because he's now in the basement in polling numbers for the way he's handled his job as DA.
And now you're going to have, at least among Democratic voters and some independents, kind of his star will rise. Here you have the first prosecutor to ever indict a former president, Charlie Langton. You and I have talked about this before. The interesting thing here is that this is a district attorney who's pursuing federal charges, right?
It seems to be. We don't know what's in the indictment, but two things. First of all, you can indict a ham sandwich. Ever hear that saying? You can indict anything. What's the grand jury all about? It's basically a group of people that only hears from the prosecutor, in this case, the district attorney. That's it. There's no defense attorney there. The defendant can't present a case, nothing. So if the district attorney can't get an indictment, that's a really bad district attorney. 90% of those cases get indicted. Okay, that's one of the things. Now, you've got some issues here about whether or not Trump allegedly used federal money to pay to shut up this porn star, Stormy Davis, which is interesting because if that's true, that would be a violation, arguably, of federal campaign law. He was running for president. Yet, this is not in the federal court system. The Department of Justice passed on this case. They said, we're not doing it. This is in the state system. So I have a very basic, fundamental jurisdictional issue that I'm sure Trump will raise. Why is a state attorney prosecuting something that has to do with a federal crime. I have a problem.
And Adam, many people do see that as a problem. Even people who don't support former President Trump, including the man sitting next to you, Jason Cable Rowe, is not a Trump fan. He's not waving a Trump flag. But he's saying, wait a minute here, this guy, this district attorney, may be playing outside of his field. Do you see any of that in this?
I'm not a Harvard-educated attorney. The New York City DA is.
But he's also a politician.
I think he understands the law and is not playing with fire on what he can or can't do. No one knows what's in the indictment. What we do know is he said, hey, I'm not going to follow this up unless the facts lead it to us. And so people can make all the decisions that they want to make and all the discussions down the line. What this is saying is that everybody is accountable to the law. That's what he's doing.
What does this do to former President Trump in his campaign? Jason?
I actually think it supercharges and probably improves his likelihood of getting the Republican nomination. This is yet another kind of overreach by his opponents that actually emboldens him. One irony, though, that I find in all of this, it was Democrats that I think established about 24 years ago in the impeachment of Bill Clinton that committing a felony in the course of hiding your affair with a woman that's not your wife is not a felony anymore. If you remember, he committed obstruction of justice and lying on the stand in the impeachment trial, and Democrats said, hey, he was covering up an affair. That's okay. Apparently it's not okay. We didn't establish a standard then.
Adam, do you see a double standard in the way Bill Clinton was viewed and how this president is viewed?
A double standard?
Yeah,
President Trump was the definition of double standards. No president could have done any of the things that he's done.
But do you see a double standard between former President Clinton and former President Trump and the way the media and people, both sides of the aisle, viewed their cases?
There's no way that President Clinton would have survived an impeachment hearing and all the things if anywhere near as much information had come out about what President Trump has done. But we are not even talking about that. We're talking about letting the system work. That's what we're talking about. Should the system work for the same way for a president as it does for everyone else? You can't indict a sitting president. So the idea that it took this extended period of time, the DA has been there for 2 years. He hasn't had the opportunity to deal with this for an extended part of the time. Let him go through and see the facts. If he doesn't have a good case, everyone will see it, and it will be the worst decision he's ever made. He would not have brought this unless it made sense. And the important part is he saw financial crimes, which he won the last case, and that's what brought him to this one. Because he won the last one, he's moved forward with information that we obviously don't have.
Don't you think President Trump loves this? Don't you think
Yes.
he loves this?
Yes.
We can all agree on that. Oh my gosh, he's going to be front page. We thought the O.J. Simpson trial was exciting. Oh my gosh, if our ratings don't go sky high when Trump is on the stand, we've got porn stars. We've got all kinds of great things.
But this will likely not see the day of a light in court.
Why?
Necessarily. Because you have a former president. Many of the legal analysts, maybe if you looked into it to yourself, you would say, wait a minute, a former president is actually going to be, well, he's indicted. That already happened. But what happens next? Is this going to go to trial? Also, the question.
He's not going to take a plea.
Well, he's not going to take a plea.
The guy's not going to dismiss the charges. It's going to trial.
Are you thinking that this man, because the space between when he's indicted and when they actually do the next legal action is when he could actually do something in contempt of court. He has to follow a judge's order, right? Pretrial conditions. Mm-hmm. Are you concerned, do you think, Jason, that this man who never has had to really report to anybody is going to be able to handle that?
Am I concerned? I don't know that that's the word. I'm, looking forward to watching to see how this plays out because you're right. I mean, this is not somebody that does anything that is expected of him, regardless of who's expecting it, including Melania. I'm looking forward to see how he handles it. I think it's going to create some must-see TV.
Adam, we only have about 30 seconds left. There's four total charges against this man. Is this the one that Democrats should be so excited about, or are there more serious
This
charges?
is not something Democrats are excited about.
I think they are, though. If you look at
Democrats are excited about doing the work. We're excited about justice applying to everybody. We would all rather see Trump off the news and people no longer talking about it. That's what's better for this country. It's what's better for this state.
But those three other charges that are right now pending against him, aren't those more serious than this one?
Every single one of them could be as serious as the other one. I mean, Al Capone went down for tax evasion.
Adam Ollier, always good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Jason Campbell Rowe, we appreciate your time as well. Charlie, of course, thank you. We'll be back on the other side of the break with final thoughts. All right, let's get some final thoughts. Well, for that, we start here with Adam. Trump is legally able to run for president, even if he's convicted. Does this hurt his chances or help his chances?
I mean, I think he thinks it helps him. I think every opportunity he gets to be in front of the news, he's going to say has helped him. I think that's bad for the country.
I think this definitely helps him. I mean, ever since he tweeted out or truthed out a week and a half ago that he was going to be arrested, the eyes of the world have been fixated on him. And he's even managed to force every candidate running for the Republican nomination to go on the record backing him while this is going on. So he's commanding center stage with this.
Including Ron DeSantis talking about how he thought that was a witch hunt as well. Charlie?
I think this is going to be a must-watch trial if this thing gets to trial, and I think it will. I don't think Trump's going to take a plea. I don't think anything is going to be dismissed. I think this is going to trial. It'll be must-see TV, and I think we're going to learn a lot about the judicial system. Let's see how it plays out. It's going to be interesting.
We'll be watching every single moment of it right here at Fox 2. Of course, we thank you, our guests, for joining us here today. That does it for this edition of Let It Rip.